NASA headquarters tried for some time to set up some kind of exchange, and it never evolved. And my director, Ken Saleh, is a great man, great leader. I was fortunate to work for him for most of the time I was there. He retired from NASA and went to work for, started a company with a lady that was worked with Arm & Hammer in importing lots of raw materials. Maybe like the titanium that's used in the SR-71 came from Russia. Yeah. So he talked to her. He got in this company. They're making ejection seats. Because the Russians, when we talked to them and told them when they came the other part of the exchange and said, they're going to fly an F-16, the seat is only good up to whatever it is, some number, not the full envelope of the airplane. And he said, wait, that's a number one rule in our seats. All have to cover the total envelope of the airplane. So anyway, he talked to this lady, and she took about 2 weeks to set up this exchange because she knows everybody in Russia. And when later on they took the Tu-144 and put different engines on it, put newer engines, she was involved in setting that up.
Oh.
One of the things she did was took all the money that was to exchange, she took it and wrapped in newspaper with her to give directly to somebody because if they sent it over there, it would never get there.
Wouldn't find its way to the right place.
So then the funny part of the story is we had selected one of our pilots that was going to go on this. We were waiting to see what's going to happen. It comes, the date, we're going to leave in 2 weeks or something like that. And he, meantime, has had an operation on his foot for a wart or something, and it got infected. So he's limping around the office. And I said, you can't go on this thing with limping. You can hardly walk. So we need to delay it. So I passed that on. We need to delay 3 weeks. And yet, can't be done. Got to be done. Well, I don't. And so then I looked around the office. Nobody ever believes there was no one else that could go except me, truly. And then I said, well, I don't have a visa. And she came back and said, you're not going Friday, you're going to fly on Saturday. You'll have the visa on your desk on Friday afternoon.
Oh. Which
guy came and gave me my visa. So I went over there and I flew the Su-27 like twice, the MiG-29 maybe 3 times, MiG-25 once, and L-39 once. And so that was, we wanted to look at high angle of attack, and we wanted airplanes to be recently inspected, the big inspections finished. And there wasn't, in the time I flew 7 flights in 10 days, and never saw light. And I flew in the front seat in every airplane.
Never saw light?
No, a warning light. Nothing ever went wrong in the whole time. But you have to understand, and you could talk forever about this one, the place, Gromov, we worked out of Gromov. Gromov is a research institute.
Okay.
It's right next to Sagi, which is where all the wind tunnels, they have a huge wind tunnel complex.
Okay.
And it's out at Ramenskoye, just outside Moscow. And so they have, I'm trying to get my train of thought here. That's where they developed all the MiG and Sukhoi. They all have places there. So the Gromov Institute is like NASA. The toilets didn't work. The lights were, half of them worked. It was a shambles. The floors hadn't been cleaned in looked like 3 years or whatever. So, but the airplanes, and the MiG-25 I flew was the same one that chased the Buran. It had been outside, I think, every day since then. And so it was looking like an airplane that had been outside for months, years. Wow. And also you sit in a different they have another cockpit put on, so you're separated from his cockpit. You're up in the front. You're not, so it's even more tricky to be in that. So I work with a man that Anatoly Kwacher, his name was. If you've ever seen the picture of, I think a MiG-29 crashing at the Paris Air Show.
Mm-hmm.
So he departed the airplane, and you see the airplane just entering the mud as he's landing, not very far away.
Yeah.
That's Anatoly. He's a great pilot, and so you could talk forever about it, but we wanted to see high angle of attack. So they modified the MiG-29 back to the original state that you could do flat spins. Get out of flat spins.
Okay.
Otherwise, they have an angle of attack limiter. And the Gromov people were very disparaging of the Russian Air Force, that one had 26 degrees and one 29, I forget which was which. But they were just saying, we don't need a limiter. And you didn't, because you could see everything that was happening. A little yaw, you can put on a little rudder. So they had written out exactly what we could see and showed us everything. So we would, like MiG-29, you'd say, let's assume that the sun is a target over there. Okay, now I'm doing the flying. I had to ask him we did like 8 spins in one flight, and I had to say, wait, can we stop for a minute? But looking at high angle of attack, the limiters are off. Now we can fly with no limiters because we're flying at Gromov. And we say and you just look over at the sun and pull, turn, roll, and pull as hard as you can. We're going up to, 65 degrees angle of attack. Yeah, and there's maybe a little yawing in the nose, but no departure. So that's the kind of flying we were doing. Su-27 is, I think, F-14, huge airplane.
Yeah.
And when we first took off, first day, wow, many stories, but it was about 1,500 feet overcast. First day we were going to fly. I got suited up. I had partial pressure suit, and Russian. The lady that was gave me a Russian jacket, looked at my U.S. winter jacket, said, "Yeah, take it off." Wasn't good enough for the cold. Anyway, he asked me, his son was about 13, was there, and they didn't fly very much this time. They were previous, in the years before, they flew thousands of hours in a month. Anyway, can I take it for a minute? Because he did air shows to make money. They made money at air shows. They got only 1/4 of their budget that they traditionally got.
Oh.
They flew transports in with for money. And I said, sure, you can have the airplane. So we did an air show in the SU, right at 300 feet or so. Really impressive. And afterwards, the chief engineer said, "Is that okay with you?" I said, "Sure, I'm not going to be doing that," but it was very impressive.
Yeah.
So the airplanes were all impressive. And the SU it's a huge airplane, so it does everything slowly so you can really see and counter it. And the MiG-25, I think before I went to 68,000 feet.
68?
In a zoom. So I'm going, well, what's the min speed we can go to? Oh, you got to tell me a min speed that we're going to go on the zoom. And we did. We zoomed up, and I don't know, 250 knots maybe, or 220 or something was min speed, and pushed over. And I didn't fly with Anatoly and the MiG. I flew with a young man who spoke perfect English. His father had been a test pilot and died in a crash. Oh. But the next morning, I came in, and this young fellow says, "I made a mistake." He made a mistake. "I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I don't know." I'm going, what? It was a good flight. It was a very interesting flight. Because we came down and did a loop at a 10,000-foot loop in the MiG-25 with 2 hands. You have 2 hands on a stick. The forces are so heavy. So what he said was, he asked me how did it go and how impressed I was with Gromov and the people. He said, "We had permission to spin down from 50,000 feet to roll out at 10 or above and then do the loop."
Thanks.
I said, "Are you kidding me? We're going to spin the MiG-25?" He said, "Yeah, we had permission to do it, and I forgot it. That's a quick way to get down." And so anyway, they treated us very well, and I said at the end of my talk once on the Russian experience, if I was going to war, I'd like them on my side because they know the fundamentals. If we asked anybody to write out the equations of motion of an airplane, just give them a sheet of paper, one of those engineers could write it out. Didn't look in a book, write it out. Because they didn't have computers. Now, when they came to our base, that's what they marveled at. You have so much. And we even had instruments that measure angular acceleration. They said they've been working for 5 years on that. But he said something at the end. He said, maybe we can learn from it. Maybe sometimes you can have too much. And you forget that you need to know the basics.
Yeah.
Or at least be familiar with them.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway.